Hey, what is up, viewer? Welcome to this reading. This is the Silgian Divinir, and I am doing something a little differently today. This morning, as I was doing some tarot shuffling, for some reason the thought ran through my mind to only do upright cards, which typically I try to do upright and downwards cards, but the moment the idea to only run cards in the upright went through my mind, a card popped up. And very specifically, what I said was, alright, well, if you only want me to do upright energy, then give me a sign. And the second I thought that, pop, out came a card. And ironically, it was also the Eight of Swords in the upright, which is a card of bondage and a card of being tied down, in a sense. So I kind of took that as a sign, fine. Instead of doing my typical thing of reading upwards and downwards energies, I decided I was going to start reading upwards energies. That led me to a very interesting read today. As I was outside shuffling the tarot cards, I got 7 cards to drop, and what do you know? All 7 of them dropped upright. This is the first reading ever. Personal reading. This is the first reading I've ever done where all 7 cards popped out upright on their own. So what I'm doing today is I'm going to go over that reading very quickly. I don't have to shuffle the cards out, but I just think it's very quaint that just last night I asked the tarot if I should do something different. They gave me an answer, so then today it's following through of its own volition. So without further ado, I am going to go through the cards that I wound up drawing here. So the first card that I wound up getting was the Ten of Pentacles. And that is it's a pretty boss card. It is my own personal energy of Capricorn. It's an earth energy. It's a energy of material abundance, and especially in the upright, it is a sign of not just working towards material abundance, but practically success of material abundance. So over here on the tarot guide, I've got, and quick shout out, of course, I am using Future Me's spread digitizer to visualize these. And this time I have not forgotten to switch to the scene so you can see that part of it. So now I'm going to run back over here to the tarot guide and real quick go over the Ten of Pentacles in the upright. So in the upright, the Ten of Pentacles, it has a lot to do with financial things, unexpected financial windfalls, lump sum, wills, deeds, trust funds, inheritance. It all has to do with material abundance, and not just a little bit either, like pretty solid material abundance. It says here that it can represent solid foundations, security, and happiness in all areas of my life. Well, gee, thank goodness I got the memo then. My goodness. Like all Pentacle cards, it is usually connected to finance or material, like I said. It says you can expect especially good things. It's also good in relation to family and represents family responsibilities, family value support. You could find yourself tracing your ancestry or discovering your family tree. You may feel very close to your family. Ten of Pentacles can signify domestic harmony. Looking forward to family event. It can represent being conventional and embracing old school traditions. But overall, it's a sign of stability and material abundance, which it's something I'm trying to find, and I've been trying to find for a long time. So it's always nice when this card drops. And even nicer was the card that followed it up, which was if I can scroll over to it here real quick. The card I got after this was actually one of the best cards, the World card. Which is the highest major arcana card. And it's in the upright. So in the upright, here's what it signifies: success, achievement, accomplishment, travel, completion, fulfillment, sense of belonging, wholeness. It's essentially a card of success. It's a card of completion. It's a sign that essentially the sign of the card is that the message in the card is that it's the completion of some kind of journey because you're at the final card of the major arcana. It essentially symbolizes managing to travel all the way through the major arcana, and because it's in the upright, there isn't anything working against itself necessarily. So some of the notes it says here, it can signify having the world at your feet, which is a good sign that you're stable. It can represent traveling the world, so to speak. It can represent new worlds opening up. Expectations to be welcomed by the people in the countries you travel to, which I don't have a passport or anything, but okay. The world card can also mean you'll have the world at your feet in another sense, or that you'll be successful and the opportunities available to you at the moment are endless. So that's why it's so powerful mixed with the upright Ten of Pentacles, because the Ten of Pentacles is about achieving so much material abundance. And the world in the upright is saying that it's not just that the material abundance is here, but it's that spiritual abundance is here to match it, which is quite profound. And I'm very happy to hear it because it's what I've been striving for a long time. And I don't think I've ever drawn the world card in any of my readings. So then it's very nice to see that it follows the Ten of Pentacles. That's quite phenomenal. Let me see if there's any other notes here. It's speaking of it, and as I mentioned, it talks about going through the trials and tribulations of the rest of the major arcana. It talks of enduring hardships and learning lessons and now reaping the rewards, which I've been trying for 15 years to finally find my financial stability. So the fact that the Ten of Pentacles is coming out followed by the World, it's wonderful. It's so wonderful to hear that. And if it comes through in the reality, I can only give grace to the divinity. It's like this combination of cards is exactly what I've been seeking, and it's exactly what I've been looking for. It's exactly what I need. And even to a certain extent here, what it's saying is it's exactly what I deserve. The World card can represent completions of a challenge, such as a university course or project, to represent finally achieving a dream or aspiration, such as starting your own business, which I have my own business started for about 5-6 months now. Let's see, what was it? Finally achieving a dream or aspiration. One of those aspirations was being financially stable. Not just barely financially stable, but beyond financially stable. Financially abundant. So it's a great sign in that direction so far. It says it represents finally being happy with what you've accomplished, so it's like a card of contentment. It says, with all this success, though, it brings a whole new set of challenges and worries, so make sure not to carry the weight of the whole world on my shoulders. I've worked hard to get to this point, so stop and savor the moment. Celebrate my accomplishments. Well, if something comes through for my business credit line, or if something comes through for achieving some kind of material abundance, then this would speak straight to that. So here's hoping. We'll see what happens. Okay, so the card that followed that is, even though it's in the upright, it's not exactly a phenomenal card to get. So despite being an upright card, it is not exactly a wonderful card, even though it's in the upright. And that card, of course, is the Five of Cups. So if I take a look at the Five of Cups here, even in the upright, it's an upright energy that's not great. It doesn't represent great energy in the upright. Some of the words that describe it are such sensations as sadness, loss, grief, despair, abandonment, guilt, remorse, regret, trauma, bereavement, mourning, heartbreak, unwelcome change, emotional instability, focusing on loss, focusing on negative emotions, isolation, loneliness, emotional baggage, divorce, separation, anger, disappointment. So that's very, very strange that the Five of Cups in the upright would be following the Ten of Pentacles upright and the World upright, because the Ten of Pentacles upright and the World upright does not represent sadness or represents happiness. It does not represent loss or represents gain. It does not represent grief. It represents happiness. It doesn't represent despair. It represents hope and success. Like the Ten of Pentacles and the World together represent like the exact opposite of the Five of Cups. So it's kind of very weird that I got those two followed up by this, which would, to a certain extent, lead me to believe. And let me read here a little more. It even says right here in the notes, how many negative emotions can one card represent? And it's true. The Cups are an emotional card, and as I've described before, like right into like the 4 to 6 range is where stuff kind of starts to stagnate a little bit, and this card is a perfect example of that. It says it can represent all of those emotions: sadness, loss, loneliness, despair. It can indicate that I'm focusing on the negative, which I can't deny that I can't deny that I can't claim that I'm perfectly optimistic. So I'm super optimistic about the Ten of Pentacles in the world. I'm not exactly pessimistic about this Five of Cups. Like, I'm not sure what it's trying to tell me exactly with this Five of Cups energy. It says it may be the result of some sort of trauma or unwelcome change you've suffered, which I wouldn't exactly say there's nothing that comes to mind exactly for that. It can signify heartbreak, divorce, or separation. So to a certain extent, what it could be representing here is that with all of my material success, there are going to be people I leave behind, and the Five of Cups is actually representing those people. They are the ones who are going to be suffering from separation, which is disappointing. It can also say that the Five of Cups tends to appear if you have suffered a recent bereavement, as it represents mourning and grief. There's a card of emotional baggage and instability, and can signify that you feel deep remorse, regret, anger, sorrow, or disappointment. So another thing it can be saying is that despite the fact I have this massive, massive material success through the Ten of Pentacles and supported through the world itself, that doesn't mean that my emotions are going to match it, which is very weird. It could mean, so despite all of the material success, I could still have a heavy heart, which is unfortunate. It's also a card of abandonment. It can represent being abandoned by someone significant to you, or to abandoning plans or people in your life. More to what I was suggesting, that due to this success that's flopped on my lap, according to these first two cards, it would lead me to believe that the Five of Cups is actually talking about the people that essentially get left behind by me, or the people who I decide to cut out of my life now that I've found newfound material abundance. I just don't see it. I don't see the Ten of Pentacles and the world abundance coming, and myself being like super emotionally down on it. I just can't imagine that. I've been trying to reach this Ten of Pentacles world success for like 15 years now. So I'm not so sure exactly who the Five of Cups is discussing, and due to some of the rest of the cards I drew, I am not so convinced it is me. I am convinced after reading this that it's actually closer to what I'm suggesting, with it being people I've left behind. People. It also can, the Five of Cups can also indicate loneliness or isolation, which I have definitely been for a long time, because I've been a legitimate hermit trying to develop myself. So that's kind of true. I don't know. So then there's another way where it could, despite my material abundance, I don't actually manage to overcome loneliness or isolation. So even though I find that material abundance, it doesn't actually work towards me finding camaraderie or getting out there more. It's almost as if the abundance is going to contribute to even further loneliness and isolation. So that's not great. It's really not great. Okay, so here's a little bit of an up nerd. It says, however, for all the negative connotations this card can bring, there is a positive message underneath it all. Well, the figure depicted in the card is crying over the spilt cups and seems to be oblivious to the fact that two cups are still bright. This is reminding you that no matter how bad things may seem, there's always a silver lining. You just have to see it. Okay. So I am going to move on to the next card because it doesn't exactly fit anything, or it's hard for me to tell if that's talking about me or about others. So the fourth card I wound up drawing upright was the Ace of Wands. If I take a look here at the Ace of Wands in the upright, once again, this is actually a positive card. So up to this point, everything but the Five of Cups is basically all optimism. Some of the descriptors for the Ace of Wands include new beginnings, good news, physically starting something, creative spark, new initiative, finding new passion, enthusiasm, urgency, accepting a challenge, potential, talent, growth, action, travel, excitement, getting in the game, getting fired up, spontaneity, fun, being bold, daring, fertility, birth, conception, new lease of life. So a lot of that actually kind of ties in with the world in particular, because the world is a sign of finally reaching the end of something, which opens up the potential for something new through the Ace of Wands, as the Ace of Wands is a card of new beginnings and starting new and taking initiative, new initiatives, new passions. Like the energy and the passion of new potential is what the Ace of Wands is sticking at. And it's kind of what it says here. In the general context, the Ace of Wands represents good news and new beginnings. Okay. So following up this material abundance in the world and the success of the world, the Ace of Wands makes sense following that up. However, with this Five of Cups in the middle, perhaps there's like one last little speed bump I have to get over, despite the material abundance and despite the great potential of the Ace of Wands. There might be a little bit of a speed bump. That's to a certain extent what this is indicating. So it's not, I can't just go from like it's kind of implicating that I can't just go from the world straight to the Ace of Wands. There's unfortunately, kind of what it's pointing to is that there's got to be some kind of sacrifice. There's got to be some kind of something. It's like, and the thing that's kind of coming to mind is like, with all of this success, my family, and not just my family, but like anybody who like thought me down, who didn't think I was capable of this Ten of Pentacles in this world energy, because they didn't believe in me, I am, and I've dreamed of leaving them behind. So, like, just due to all of the stuff in this reading, I have a hard time believing that the Five of Cups is describing my emotionality. To a certain extent, it could be describing me getting more isolated and even more lonely. But with all this material abundance, it's hard to believe, kind of, unless I, of course, choose to do that. But with a successful business, it's hard to imagine that I would be isolated and lonely. So I'm pointing more, like, I'm feeling like it's really more like people are going to be shattered by the fact that I'm succeeding, that I've succeeded finally. So it's kind of like a warning of a price to pay, I suppose. But what am I supposed to do? I've got to go from the world to the Ace of Wands here. Like, so what else does it say here? So it signifies taking action, physically starting something, new initiative, and finding new passion, enthusiasm, or spark. It's a minor arcana card of accepting a challenge, getting fired up, and getting in the game. So it's like, essentially, it's kind of like I get this material abundance, or it's kind of pointing towards getting this material abundance. But then the Ace of Wands is coming in and saying, okay, now you've actually got to put that material abundance into action and into the world. So it's the journey does not stop. Even though the world is the end of a journey, it's not the end of the journey. Even though the Ten of Pentacles is a sign of success, the Ace of Wands is saying, okay, congratulations. Now it's time to put all of that into action. I was also considering helping one of my old jobs over the busy weekend. So to a certain extent, the Ace of Wands might be pointing to that. But that's a little outside of the context of this reading, because the meager pay I make at that place isn't Ten of Pentacles energy. Hate to break it to you. So let me see what else we've got here. It also represents discovering, the Ace of Wands also represents discovering your potential or talent, and brings a sense of urgency and a new lease of life when it appears in your tarot spread, which is essentially what the Ten of Pentacles in the world are providing. It provides me the ability to reach for those new potentials, which I felt bound and incapable of doing because I have been so materially lacking for half my life, basically. It speaks to a sense of urgency, which, if you've got to start maintaining your wealth, you can definitely have a different sense of urgency. A new lease of life, which is exactly what I've been working for, like through this Ten of Pentacles and the World Energy. It says this card indicates that you have creative spark and are feeling bold and daring. Well, I guess that's true. I do feel creative when I'm motivated and bold and daring, especially once I get, like, especially if I get this material abundance. I'm going to be very bold and very daring because I've been very patient for a long time. And I'm going to be able to afford more bold and daring things. It also signifies spontaneity and excitement, so expect fun times when it appears in your tarot reading. This card can also represent fertility, conception, and birth. So, kind of, if you kind of skip the Five of Cups and you just go Ten of Pentacles, World, Ace of Wands, that makes perfect sense. Material abundance into channeling that material abundance into new great lengths. With the Five of Cups, which is why I read this as, with the Five of Cups here, that this Five of Cups is other people. This Five of Cups is other people who feel like they're getting left behind, with maybe a smidgen of a warning to myself to not get isolated, to not isolate myself even further. So, still though, so far that's very good and very positive. Okay, so the last kind of touchy card from this reading was the Two of Swords. So usually two cards represent, like, they're pretty close to the beginning, right at following the aces. So typically they represent, like, energy that is, like, optimistic energy about growth. But the swords in particular I'm now kind of discovering that they very often are depicting conflict. Like, even in the upright energy typically means that there's some kind of conflict on the horizon, or, like, on nigh, it's already there, perhaps. So, to say what we've got here, the Two of Swords, some of the words that describe it are stalemate, truce, sitting on the fence, crossroads, difficult decisions, painful choices, stressful decisions, opposition, facing your fears, being torn between two relationships, divided loyalty, being caught in the middle, denial, blindness, inability to see the truth, avoidance, and blocked emotions. So it's definitely a card of indecision, despite the fact that it's upright. And I can tell you right now that that's one of my biggest problems, is I am severely indecisive. So this card in particular, the Two of Swords, I can definitely see that being myself. And it's not great though. So, like, following this other stuff, like, despite the material abundance, success, despite the world's support, despite the Ace of Wands, talking about great potential energy and great passion, the Two of Swords gives warning about, it gives warning that I will find, it's kind of giving warning that I will find a lot of indecision, despite, or, like, I'll find a lot of indecision past this, like, happy honeymoon phase of pushing into the Ace of Wands, but then through the Ace of Wands. So instead of, like, going from the Ace of Wands to the Two of Wands, going from the Ace of Wands to the Two of Swords can represent essentially a lot of indecision. It can represent a lot of... It also speaks a lot to being caught in the middle. So it speaks a lot to, like, basically getting pulled in multiple directions and having to make harsh decisions that will affect people. It also says blocked emotions, which is, I'm so stuck on blocked. My emotions are so blocked. That is why one reason I've started the tarot, as a way to try and bust through some emotional blocks that I've had for a long time. It can also, so very specifically it says being torn between two relationships. It speaks of divided loyalty, which kind of was happening to me in my last job, because I had started my company and I was working in that company, and I just didn't have the passion for the typical job. So it could speak to that if I try to go work somewhere else again. It speaks of being caught in the middle, which is, like, love triangle crap is not my forte. I have no patience for that stuff. So I can't imagine it technically talking about that. It can speak to denial and blindness and an inability to see the truth, which another word for that is vapidity, which I do my best to be integrous and to have ingenuity and integrity. It doesn't mean that I am perfect in every single decision I ever make. And sometimes that can happen because I am in denial, because I'm not seeing the truth. That can happen. So something that just kind of came through after I said that is that despite all of this like personal material, Ten of Pentacles abundance, despite this support of the World card in the upright, despite this wonderful potential energy of the Ace of Wands, that doesn't mean that I'm going to be right on everything. Okay, so here's some notes on it. In a general context, the Two of Swords represents a stalemate, truce, or being at a crossroads. So it's like an indecision issue. You are, or it's not even an indecision, I suppose. A stalemate is an unwanted outcome. It's not a loss, but it's not a win. So it's ultimately ultimately an unwanted outcome if you're a winner. So like a stalemate isn't losing, but it's not winning either. So it's not cool. A truce, which is once again, it's like the goal was to win, but something else had to come through. Or being at a crossroads, which is once again, it's a decision. And it's a decision where if I'm the leader now, because I've got this abundance, there are people who will be riding on my back, or like, you know, there'll be people who will be depending on me. It also says that you are sitting on the fence or struggling to avoid a difficult, stressful, or painful decision. So it's avoiding something that needs to happen, sort of. And so it's warning that I might not want to do certain hard decisions. And it represents coming face to face with fears. It can signify being torn between two loyalties, relationships, situations with other people, offers of people. Represent being caught in the middle of an argument or conflict, trying to mediate between opposing parties, which that kind of makes some sense because I've been kind of doing some abortion videos due to the political state right now. So there's a little bit of potential to like try to mediate, I suppose, the argument, which actually isn't my nature. I'm actually quite clear on my side of that, so I'm not sure if that's what that's talking about. Mediating between opposing parties, though, which could be in the actual workplace. What just came to mind is that the job I was thinking about going back to this weekend, it's a restaurant, and they've got busters there. And just today I went there to get like a salad, and as in there was like one of the employees was talking about like, oh man, are the busters still on strike? So kind of what came to mind when I saw this mediating opposing parties is if I go back to work this weekend, there's a good shot that I'm going to be in the middle of the busters and the servers bickering with each other. So, but that's not exactly key to this reading. So even though it came to mind, I'm not sure if that's what it's talking about. It just the Two of Swords comes back to blocked emotions, denial, blindness, inability, unwillingness to see the truth. So it's like, it's almost like a card of blocked intuition. Which, in order to get this material abundance, I mean, you've got to have some kind of intuition. You've got to be able to progress yourself to success. But perhaps it's a warning that, despite my material success, I don't quite have the same interpersonal success. So it might be a warning to that I can achieve material abundance, but even though that might be my strong suit, conflict resolution in the workplace might not be. So I'll have to see what happens with that. It's a very strange connotation. It's kind of in a weird spot, like the Five of Cups. But with the Five of Cups, I can feel other people involved. With the Two of Swords, it kind of... the most relevant thing I can say for this reading is it's kind of a growing pain. It's going to be a growing pain between, like, split ideals within the company or something like that. That's the best idea I can convey at the moment. As far as it relates to these other cards. So, not super awesome. Two of Swords. I'm not quite sure what it's trying to glean to me there. Alright, I'm going to move on to the next card I drew, which the last two cards were good. They were helpful. So if I look for the Wands, let me look for the Wands. The next card I got was the Page of Wands, and in the upright. So if I take a look here at the Page of Wands, we've got in the upright. I mean, it's very strange because, like I said, the Two of Swords is in between this card and the Ace of Wands. In the Ace of Wands to the Page of Wands it's like all the Page of Wands is like all of the potential of the Ace of Wands. The Page of Wands is like how that comes to fruition. So like some of the words that describe it are good news, swift news, letters, phone calls, word of mouth, fresh, cheerful, childlike, fun, playful, active, optimistic, full of energy, bright ideas, new exciting plans, creativity, lovable, rogue, charismatic, free thinking, confident, intelligent, extroverted, fearless, rushing into things, finding your passion. It's almost all optimism. And it's almost all like, and it's like interpersonal optimism, like phone calls and letters, words of mouth. It also speaks to like being optimistic and full of energy, which I would love. I would love to see that. New exciting plans, which if the material abundance will obviously, you'd be able to, if you have all that material abundance, you'd be able to have new and exciting plans. It also says lovable rogue, which I'm kind of, like I am kind of rebellious in my nature. So that would be cool if like my rebellious nature people don't turn away from, they actually appreciate. So that would be awesome to a certain extent. All this stuff kind of describes me, like free thinking. I feel like I think for myself. Confident, internally I'm confident, not externally, not yet, not till this material abundance comes through. Intelligent, I can be. Extroverted, no, but perhaps that's going to change now. Fearless, to a certain extent. That's why I've led the life I have up to this point, because I haven't been afraid to say no to culture when I need to. Rushing into things, perhaps if I have the material abundance, and then finding my passion, which would be cool. Or like I already have my passion, but I would like to feel it. Okay, so here's some of the notes on it. So in a general context, the Page of Wands represents good news that should be coming to you swiftly or shortly. Very good. Like I said, which is the World card and the Ten of Pentacles and the Ace of Wands. So it's not just that success is on the horizon, it's that it's going to be coming in swiftly. It could take the form of letters, phone calls, or word of mouth. It says it also signifies having bright ideas on what you can do, being inspired or creative, making new exciting plans, thinking big, and finding something you are passionate about, which is all about what my company is about. It's all about having bright ideas, being inspired and creative. It's a creative company. It's a video game company, so it's a creative artworks company. Making new exciting plans, which if I've got material abundance, it would be so awesome to finally be able to make new and exciting plans for the first time in my life. Because up to this point, I haven't had any material ways to support that, so all the plans I've ever made have all just been payless work. It's had to be work and effort for no pay. Thinking big, finding something you're passionate about. Okay. Which my company is thinking pretty big, to be honest with you. It can also indicate that you may have a tendency to rush into new things without thinking them through fully when it appears in your tarot spread. Sometimes that's, I suppose, how I can be. Sometimes I do not think things through all the way. I suppose that's true. So that might be a smidge of a warning there. It also says I may be releasing my inner child and finding myself very playful and having fun when it appears. If I get the material abundance, I'll be ready to play around, I tell you what. It also says as a person, the Page of Wands represents a young person, child, or person who's young at heart, which I feel like I'm very young at heart. That's, I mean, so much to the point where people still say I'm very childish. And they still say, like, I'm a little boy for, living with my mommy and all that shit. So, unfortunately, that's very accurate about me in particular. That I am, like, it's just my nature. I have a youthful nature. But that's great because it mentions that through that, it provides freshness, cheerfulness, playfulness, activity, optimism, full of energy. So all the great energy that a child can have. It says this person will have lots of bright ideas and new exciting plans. So it might not even be referring to me, necessarily. It could be somebody else who is actually managing to bring that energy along. And for some reason, right when I said that, for some reason I thought of my nephew, my 3-year-old nephew. So like, and he is still very like that. He is still very full of energy and active and all of that stuff. So I'm not sure why he came to mind, especially with this 2 of Swords behind it. But it also says this person will have lots of bright ideas and new exciting plans, which she's too young for that. So perhaps it's not talking about him, and it's still talking about me. It mentions they may be a fire sign. They may be a bit of a cheeky charmer or lovable rogue. They are charismatic, free-thinking, confident, intelligent, extroverted, and fearless, but may have a tendency to rush action without considering the consequences. So that's all great. I wouldn't necessarily say that all describes me to a T, though. That is all ways I can definitely be... Well, okay. So the receiving the great news quickly, the phone calls, the word of mouth, all that stuff, that makes some sense. The energy, though, that comes with that, I don't have yet. So I'm hoping this is a foresign to finally having better energy. That would be very magnificent. All right, so the last card that wound up dropping then was the 7 of Wands in the upright, which that is also pretty good. So if we take a look here, it's talking about standing up for beliefs, fighting your corner, protective, defensive, determined, challenging, opposing, stamina, holding your own, taking high road, maintaining control, territorial, assertive, forceful, relentless, strong will, under attack, blame, harassment, scapegoat, resisting, busy, hectic, demanding. So a lot of that is like, it kind of sounds like boss energy. Like it sounds like having to put your foot down as the boss, kind of, and like overcome the lackadaisical nature that may be imparted upon certain people I hire. So, and people might want to do things a certain way, but I've got a certain way I want to do things for certain issues, like for certain ways the company approaches itself, for certain ways the company carries out its mission. So like, because the company is so exotic, there's probably going to be a lot of times where I have to stand up for what I believe in, and like it says, fight in my corner, be protective, be defensive, be challenging, be opposing, having stamina, holding my own, taking the high road. So being able to take the high road when these conflictions emerge as a way to get over them, as opposed to make things worse. Maintaining control, territorial, assertive. Yeah, a lot of this stuff sounds like what a business owner has to do with people that challenge their approach. Strong will, under attack, blame, harassment, scapegoat, resisting, busy, hectic, demanding. So perhaps it's trying to warn me that a lot of what they are saying is I might be too demanding. Scapegoat is a little weird. Okay, so it says, in general context, the 7 of Wands represents opposing, standing up for what you believe in, fighting your corner, and holding your own. It signifies taking the high road, maintaining control, and being strong-willed. This minor arcana card also indicates someone who is protective, defensive, assertive, forceful, relentless, determined, and territorial. It can suggest that you are under attack, being harassed, blamed, or scapegoated, but you are resisting. Life may be challenging, busy, and hectic. With this card, your tarot spread. So you will need stamina to endure. So it's like kind of the 7 of Wands is kind of the consequences of having all of this material abundance and actually like hiring the company. So the Page of Wands and the 7 of Wands work together to validate this material, and the Ace of Wands to validate this material success from the 10 of Pentacles and the World card, with the 2 of Swords in the center as perhaps a growing pain for myself to get through the potential into the Page of Wands success. And then once that success has been found, that's when the hater heat is going to get turned way up. So once I've bashed through this Two of Swords conflict and reached the Page of Wands success, the Seven of Wands is saying that's when the fight, it's kind of when the fight really begins to a certain extent. That's when I'm going to have to really, really test my own endurance for making this up, which is not exactly what I'm looking for in the company. I'm not looking I'm not making the company to have to put up with all this tribulation all the time. It's not the point. The point of the company is to create great games and provide livings for a bunch of people who have trouble finding them. So, still, it is a sign of success, though. It shows, it's like the results of success in this form, in this fashion. Another thing is that some of the political talks I've been giving online, like in little podcast formats, that can lead to a lot of getting attacked. That can lead to a lot of, that can lead to a lot of, like what it says here, being harassed, being under attack, being blamed, being scapegoated. But it also says that I'm resisting, which I am. Which is part of what why the Page of Wands is saying that I could be a lovable rogue, because I'm not resisting in atypical ways that are just like put downs and stuff. It mentioned rising, like taking the high road. So due to my ability to resist and resist traditional notions, I think it's going to make me a lovable rogue, because despite my rebellion, I am going to be cherished for it, because it's not full of shit and ridiculous. So, the only other thing I could really say for this is that because I'm considering going back to work for this weekend to help them out, because it's 4th of July weekend, the Ten of Pentacles in the world could signify that I'm going to be able to straighten out my finances by helping out there a little bit. And that the Five of Cups showing that I just don't know what this... I just don't feel like this Five of Cups is me. Like, with all of the surrounding energy, all of the successful surrounding energy through the Ten of Pentacles, the World card, the Ace of Wands, the Page of Wands, the Seven of Wands, like, those are all cards of success. So, like, the thing that just came to mind was that I'm going to break hearts at work, because there's a lot of pretty girls that work at work, but I don't ever try to talk to them. So despite me showing up and doing a good job, that's just what I keep seeing. One way or the other is like this Five of Cups is other people that are hurt by the fact that I'm leaving them behind. And as I work through this success, like, the Two of Swords is suggesting that I might find indecision, or I might find confliction. So, yeah, I think that's about it for this reading. I just wanted to follow up with that. Jesus Christ, it took me 43 minutes to freaking go through these subcards. I wanted this to take like 10-15 minutes. But this is what I've got. All 7 uprights. My first all upright reading ever. For myself, for anybody else, really. I think my brother got one. He had like 3 uprights, but for me, it's been like, this is like astounding reading for me personally. It's a wonderful message, and that's why I wanted to share it, and that's why I wanted to stipulate that I usually don't get all of this energy like this. So that's why I wanted to share it as a kind of a development on my tarot. So thank you very much if you actually bothered to listen to this for 45 minutes. I know it's not a general reading for anybody else, but I pre-dropped the cards, and this is what came out. Was for the most part, a beautiful message of success and abundance, prosperity, majesty. So I'm going to leave it at that. Hey, thank you very much for checking us out. Take care.